Sahar Andrade is a dear friend of mine. She is a soup talker. If you've ever seen the TED Talks, we just saw one this morning. There is a soup talk. I'm not sure if all of you know that, but there is. And Sahar has done a great job on her soup talks. She excels in award-winning diversity, equity, inclusion. She was one of the finalists last week in the LABJ as an individual for Best in Class for Los Angeles. Her uniqueness comes, guess what? She's also a medical doctor, as well as specializes in neuroscience and psychology and dealing with mindsets, either unconscious biases or deconstructing fixed minds as limiting beliefs to gain new positive habits. She is a walking, talking, diverse human. She speaks 5 languages. She is Egyptian by birth, and she's married to a Hispanic. She has a double major of both sciences and internal medicine and surgery from Cairo University of Medicine. Sahar, welcome. Big CB love for you.
Thank you. Hey. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. And first and foremost, I want to thank Kimberly for inviting me to be part of this. And just to let you know, Kimberly is one of my dearest friends, but she's also my mentor. So I just wanted to recognize that, as always. You know, Cindy is a very good friend of mine, and Cindy, I love the conversation this morning. So it was just unbelievable. Allyship is something that is very dear to my heart. DEI is what I live for every single day. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually take you into a personal journey, my personal journey with DEI since I was a child, and how I got to where I need to be today, because I do believe that everything starts and ends with us. Yes, Maria, I was lucky enough. You will understand why from my story, why I learned 5 languages. So that being said, I want to start with a quote from Rumi that is one of my favorite poets and philosophers. He is from the Middle East. And he said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop." So everything starts and ends with us. I remember a little girl that was 10 years old that stood behind the corner of a school, not knowing what to do. She had 2 ponytails. She had a flowery dress. She was like 25 pounds heavier than the girls in her age. She was crying because she was just removed from the yearly school dance that she trained for the whole year. It was her first activity to be seen in that school because it was yet a new school that she was transferred for. And she was feeling that feeling of camaraderie and belonging, and she thought that this will make her a little bit visible. Her heart was broken. Tears went down to her face. She felt scared, overwhelmed, anxious, panicked, exposed. And most importantly, she felt humiliated, like she didn't matter. She felt rejected, marginalized. She felt that she had actually limited access to what other kids took for granted. She made herself so small that she wanted to disappear. She wanted to have like a magic wand that will just make her invisible. At least in her head she was. It didn't matter at this moment how many times her parents told her that she was smart, she was beautiful, how much they love her. She rushed home, trying to be invisible even from her own family, and she hid in her room for a couple of hours. And she asked herself, how could others not see her, though she was fat, she was big, but she still was invisible? That day will affect her for the rest of her life. Because after crying for a few hours, what she did is that she decided to dance on her own. She put loud music, she looked in a mirror, and she started dancing. That little girl will actually grow to be an avid ally for women, an avid ally for everyone that doesn't have a voice, She will fight every single day for acceptance for both the visible and invisible characters of diversity of every human being that shows that their own unique beauty. I know that little girl. I know her too well. That little girl was me. I grew up in a very strange manner. I changed schools every 4 years in a different country. It's a different country, not a new zip code. So you can only imagine. The more I changed schools, I became the new kid. I became the strange kid. I became the fat kid. I became the brown kid, the kid with an accent. My invisible diversity, like my experience, background, my kindness, were exactly that, just invisible. At every new school where I was to stand up and introduce myself and where I'm from, I stuttered. And in my mind, I played different scenarios like, it would be great if I was sick today, wasn't it? Or I didn't make it to school. I felt a whole lot of anxiety. I didn't know that it was called anxiety then, but mainly I felt that I need to say always the right thing that will make everyone love me, or at least like me, even if it wasn't entirely true. I grew up in 7 different countries. Maybe that's why that's a blessing that I see now, because that's how I learned 5 languages. And that's how I learned that different people are beautiful, that I need to value people for who they are and not who I want them to be. I hid behind something. I made myself small growing up, though it wasn't easy being a bigger girl, especially when I turned to food for comfort and I kept even gaining more weight. That wasn't the last time I would feel invisible like that. With every single move, every new school, every new neighborhood, I would do everything and anything anyone will ask me to do. I would help everyone at my own expenses sometimes. I would do homework or chores that were not even my responsibility first, and then I would attend to whatever is mine. I would be exhausted, sometimes falling asleep in class because I just wanted to be liked, like a little child, just wanted to fit in. And because I believed I had to do extra, so I would be liked as the fat girl needed extra effort to be liked. And that stayed in my mind. Then came college time. I come from the Middle East, where if you really want to have power, if you really want to have a name, you either go to engineering school or medical school. My parents had already charted my my life to come, and they had decided, since I was an A student, that I should go to medical school. Never thought about it. I just followed the steps because I just wanted to be, I wanted to make them happy. I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted them to love me. I wanted to be visible for a little bit, even of my life. Again, not to make any wave and to please them, I went to medical school. I was miserable every single minute. By the 3rd year, I started thinking, if this life is all about, why should I even live it? But I'm not a quitter. I finished medical school. And right after I finished it, I moved to the United States, right after my graduating. That was the first move that I have ever done in my life that was just for me. And I'm going to tell you something funny about that. The first thing I landed in Century City, I noticed that there was actually green and red lights that people respected. And there were actually lanes that the cars stayed in between. If you come where I come from, that's not exactly the case. So anyhow, make a long story short, I was lucky that I was able to melt in. I lived in 7 different countries before coming here. So for me, the survival kicks in. Being invisible carried through my whole life as a constant theme. In work projects, not everyone would pull their weight. I wouldn't say anything. I would actually do their part. I would say yes to meetings that do more to fulfill someone else's agenda instead of my own, working in the background so no one will call on me or see me. I would not speak up if I heard something I didn't like. even if it was hurtful. Jokes about where I came from, fat jokes, saying like such a beautiful face if you only lost some weight. Oh, cute or funny accent at the time. I didn't know that was microaggression, actually. I didn't know that all these little phrases were microaggression rather than something nice. I was reluctant to express my opinions or even feeling. I would use words like, I suppose, I never, I might, I just. I felt used at time, but refrained from complaining. I agreed with views of the majority. I was pushed. I was being bullied. I often laughed it off. I was taken for granted. And most of the time, I didn't get what I wanted from friendships or even relationships. I apologized so much that it was ridiculous. I apologized for what I did, and I apologized for what I didn't do. I apologize for what I said, and I apologize for what I didn't say. I felt sometimes that I would apologize for merely existing. Same happened at home around family, elders, authorities. I come from Egypt, which is basically a high distance culture where you put elders and people on authority on pedestal even when they don't deserve it. Right? The beauty of our cultures. I was basically a people pleaser. Our self-image becomes based on how others perceive us as opposed to our personal reflection. That's why when we deal with kids, especially with a great organization like yours, like the Children Bureau, we need to start thinking about the root of the people that we become. And this lies within the children. Each one of us has a story that started and is still continuing. And our stories are shaped by what we said yes to and what we say no to. We are not born with scripts, but we create our own stories that end up becoming boxes that hold us within, and we fail to look at other possibilities that exist. These boxes become our reality, or we think it's our reality, and we become confined within them. Not only other put us in boxes based on the way we look or talk, but we also sabotage ourselves by putting ourselves in these boxes. The problem is that they become our comfort zone that we don't want to disrupt because they become security blankets, taking us in more ways of being invisible. Our anxiety is wired in us. We are wired to care about our relative status to others. Valuation and judgment we feel others impose on us. We are fighting with centuries of years of learned behaviors and traits and habits. By looking to the outside for validation, people pleasers, like how I used to be, tend to put aside their own ambitions. I had to learn the hard way in my late 20s, early 30s. I was picture perfect on the outside. The youngest manager, the youngest winner, the youngest this, the youngest that. But I was shattered inside with a lot of anxiety, stress, feeling marginalized all the time. I would spend sometimes months hardly sleeping. Insomnia was actually my friend. I worked and worked covering for my boss, my colleagues, never getting credit, hiding in the back so no one can notice me, still staying invisible. The straw that broke the camel's back, camel, ironic, was a huge project. I worked for 6 months on a huge project for a promotion because I felt maybe I can become invisible, but the same thing happened again. The VP took my whole project, changed my name to the boyfriend name so they can get the promotion. And actually they did get the promotion. I broke down to pieces. All the weight of this year of being invisible and accepting things that I shouldn't have was too heavy, a burden on my shoulders to keep carrying. I had actually a nervous breakdown. After a lot of therapy, I started understanding what was happening. I was still the fat brown girl, the different girl, the immigrant, the one with the accent. I had to realize that all of these characters were actually my intersectionality. Intersectionality are the layers of what made me, that these layers made my beauty. They were my strength. I should not hide from them. And I start claiming each one of them and stand in my power. I was done being the bionic woman. I was who I am, and that was my power. I was keeping it all inside, building frustration and resentment, sometimes even from the people I mostly love. I created a huge disconnect on who I seem to be on the outside and who I am on the inside, but it was my responsibility. Only when we are true to ourselves that we can complete the circle of become complete. It's not about what we do, but how we do it, and most importantly, why we do it. We are destined for greatness, but when we try to occupy the smallest space possible so we can hide and be invisible, not to be seen, we magnify suppression and glass ceilings imposed on us. Mostly, we need to shatter the inner ceilings that we created upon ourselves because others want us to believe that. We can buy our own homes and have our own roofs. We do not have to subscribe to these ceilings, either that are imposed on us or imposed by ourselves. I want you to take as much space as you can. Be bigger than life. It's about who we are individually as individuals, our uniqueness. We need to feel comfortable in our own skin to start with. Our differences is what makes us, and this is how we can make a difference in the world. I always say this, our differences can make a difference in the world. Only when we are whole and accept ourselves as such that others can do the same. It starts with us, and also ends with us. As individuals, we can't be afraid of being ourselves or fall into who we are. We can't be like anyone else. They always say there is only one of you because everyone else is taken. We need to work on being the better version of who we can be. So let me ask you this, and I don't mean any disrespect by that. Who you think you are? I mean, who you think you are at the core. Do you know your identities? Do you know what you stand for? Do you know where you came from? Do you know what you are proud of? Who are you? Who is the real you at the core? Not your identity as an HR person or a case manager or a nonprofit professional or a husband or a wife or a daughter or a son or a father or a grandparent. And not your experience only. Regarding your experience, do you have 10 years experience or one experience that you did 10 times? How do you look at all that? If we take all these layers away, who would you be at the core? Do you get better and better with each year passing as you are meant to be? How many times have you ever heard or told someone who was looking for advice, just be yourself? Let me tell you, having a mentor like Kimberly, she will never tell you just be yourself. She will tell you that, but she will give you the tools on how to do it, not just be yourself. Do you even know what that means? The first time I heard that, I didn't even know what it meant. So if I told you now, just be yourself, who would you be? What does that mean to you? What do you expect from your life? What does it expect from you? It is not what others expect from you, where they have drawn the borders, put you in boxes of who you are supposed to be. Secondhand experience of what we should be and what we shouldn't be, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is important. Most importantly, what is expected from us. And God forbids if we try to color outside of those lines, we can become an outcast. I don't care. I will always color outside of these boxes. We can't feel in competition with anyone else. We cannot. We can only compete with who we were yesterday. We all come with our own set of skills and powers, not to be compared with anyone else. We can lift each other and be happy for each other's accomplishments. We can adjust each other's crown. We need to stop wanting to accommodate, please, socialize, adapt, and be nice. The choice is yours. Only you can take that decision to go past the change barriers. You will do that when the change that you have in mind is more important to you than the cost of breaking the barriers. Many of us have trained to make ourselves invisible. And because of this, we believe on a deep and conscious level that our needs don't matter. Guess what? Our needs do matter. Our voices do matter. Our representation does matter. When we make ourselves invisible, this is how we show up. We, as well as our thought, blend into the background, and we just mirror other people who will experience a better sense of themselves. But we disappear because we remain invisible. When we are invisible to ourselves, others treat us the same way we are treating ourselves. When we are trying to be invisible, we ignore ourselves, we ignore our feelings and self-care because we don't feel that we are important, and that's how others will treat us. It's a coping mechanism. It will work for a short time. On the long time, we feel alone and abandoned inside. Not advocating for ourselves, thinking that we are tough, we can take it, we're a superwoman, but we are only actually avoiding conflicts. Accepting one-way relationships because in the back of our mind, we don't matter, or we are people pleaser just to get approval of being nice. The truth is, wanting to be invisible is more about a feeling of not wanting to bother others than to be left alone. I didn't want to be seen for fear of rejection. This is the truth. And this was the truth. I felt not complete, even defective inside, unlovable. The only hope I had of getting something that I needed was to keep myself hidden from views, because nobody who knew the truth, who knew me, would willingly give me anything. Accepting that I didn't have an impact and wanting to be invisible was giving up on me. Trying to achieve acceptance by compliance to other wishes, but it was never enough. Accepting that I didn't matter defined me as unimportant. Not important enough to be heard made me feel invisible. Does a person who doesn't matter really exist? I felt regarded as insignificant, but at the same time, being invisible was the only way I had felt safe in the past. So it was somewhat of a default mode. I had always lived by the thought, if they don't notice me, they can't hurt me. When I took my life back, I wanted to be seen and heard, and God, I'm loud. I had something to say, and I had a right to say it. I wanted to have some impact on others. But at the same time, I was afraid of rejection that was forthcoming whenever I had tried to have a voice before. It was complicated to realize both these thoughts and belief were operating at the same time. I would say that learning to listen to myself and giving up on being heard by the people who silenced me in the first place was foundational in my healing. Finding my voice did not mean that I had to be heard by those that refused to hear me. Embracing equality and owning that equal value was for me too, was part of how I finally found, validated, and reclaimed my voice. How could I truly be inclusive if I did not include myself? Start claiming your power and empower others. Learn that there is no perfection in this world. Vulnerability shows our beauty. The more vulnerable we are, the more self-confident we become. You have to ask to get. You have to talk to get what you need. When you start growing, when you start changing, when you start walking your talk, when you start changing how you respond to things, the way you use your time and you start saying, no, I cannot do that because I'm busy. I do not have time. I have an agenda to finish by the end of the day. I got something that I'm doing. Some will put you on a guilt trip. They will use and abuse you over and over till you draw the line. Don't go through life feeling like powerless. You are not powerless. You are powerful. You direct the power in your life. This is where I used to be. This is not where I am now. To begin the change, start with describe the person you want to be. What are the things that you want to overcome? What qualities of personality you will have to change, because those particular characteristics are liability to you. Write down your reasons why you want to do it. Start small. Tell the cashier or salesperson that you don't want that extra insurance or protection. Tell a friend that you can make it for coffee because you're busy. Tell a sibling you can be there at Thanksgiving because you're traveling for fun, and so on. I am me in a very unapologetic way. I accept who I am, and I do what I do to empower anyone that doesn't have a voice. I stand up for them, and like I said before, I'm loud. And here is the key to releasing the old pattern of behavior forever, shattering your inner glass ceiling. If you were to align yourself with this deeper truth, how would you show up? The deeper truth is that you're here to make a difference with your gifts, but you need to believe that. It's not an overnight change. It takes a lot of work. It's a choice that you need to make. For me, the deeper truth that I have something valuable to contribute, and that my ideas, even if they were imperfect, works in progress at times, are valuable. And I could begin to be visible and share them. My question for you is, how present are you in your past? I want you to close your eyes for a second and think, if every little child in the whole wide world had a voice, if every child in every country, in every city, in every town, in every little village had a voice, how will our world be? Let's empower ourselves and empower others by giving them their power back. Let's be the voice for those that don't have one. Let's stand up for them and with them. That's why I do what I do every day. That's why you do what you do every day. When I look in the mirror and I say, mirror, mirror, who's the most visible of them all? I say, me. My name is Sahar Andrade, and it has been an honor to be here today.
Sahar Andrade, I tell you, that was, I'm a puddle, so I can't even talk because I'm all teary, but thank you. This is your story, and I acknowledge your story, and we all do. You've got lots of wonderful words. If you get a chance, be sure and go in the chat box and experience what people have been saying. This resonated with so many people, myself included, and it's so powerful. So thank you, my sis, for being here today, and thank you for sharing your story.